if you only take one thing from this episode, it is do not run. Do not run. Do not run. Do not run.
Okay.
Even if you're trying to outrun a baby seal, do not run. This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like flowers.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring. I'm pretty excited because me and the boys just finished watching all 3 Indiana Jones movies. And I say all 3 because those are the ones that count. In my opinion. The boys have been running around the house recently, singing Indiana Jones and talking about it. We've been so excited in our household about watching Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade the last few days.
Our oldest son told me, Mom, when it comes to books or movies, the more violent, the better. I'm like, oh, boy.
Oh, man. It was so cool. And we just went to the store the other day and we bought some model tanks that me and the boys and Ash, maybe, if she wants to help, we're going to put together some model tanks from World War II. And my oldest son, he's like, I just know it. I know there's going to be a tank in the third one. I just know it. And then when a tank showed up, he was just so excited. It was the greatest thing. When Indiana Jones was fighting the Nazis on a tank, it was the best moment a father could have.
John is creating 2 little mini-me's on purpose, so
it's
our
true.
Kids are quite nerdy, and I tell them that all the time. I've just got a family of nerds.
I think it's pretty funny.
In a good way. A good way.
It's true. When I say nerd, sometimes like when we're watching something or somebody says something particularly nerdy, I'll chime in and say, nerd alert. And then my oldest son will pop his head up and he's like, ooh, that must be positive thing.
It is. It is. We celebrate nerddom in this family.
Exactly.
Nerddom.
Nerddom. I think you only say the D once.
No, that sounds weird. Nerddom.
You just you delay the D.
I guess so.
Nerddom.
Oh my gosh.
So you almost don't say the D.
Hey, John, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Hard detour from what we're talking about.
Okay.
I have to know, John, are you scared of bears?
No, I'm not afraid of bears.
You're not?
I do get nervous ball in my stomach if I'm super near one, but I wouldn't say it's like a fear.
What about if you're tent camping and you hear noises?
Then I am surprisingly alert. But I am not afeared of bears. For years on this podcast, Ash has slandered me as being afeared all the time of bears.
It's okay to be afeared of bears. Most people are, but I'm just wondering where you stand.
I'll tell you where I stand. I think there's a higher likelihood of a bear sniffing me out in my tent than a bear attacking me on the trail. That's probably why I'm more cautious about noises in the campsite than I am out on the trail.
Okay, interesting. Because today we are talking all about bears. Bears. I'm so excited because
so cool.
This has been a topic. So what this episode is going to be is I pulled all your questions off of Instagram that you have asked me about bears.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to go through these questions. We're going to answer them, share stories, whatever comes up. But we just want to talk about bears because there is a lot of fear surrounding bears. When people are going on national park trips, a lot of times those are the types of questions I get, like how worried should I be about this? Or, should we even go hiking when we're in this park? Or are there too many bears? Questions along those lines.
Well, then let me return the favor.
Okay.
Are you afraid of bears, Ash?
I have a healthy fear of bears.
Oh,
I would say I have.
very diplomatic.
Well, listen, you should be afraid of a predator such as a bear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's okay to acknowledge that fear and to say, yes, like this does make me nervous, but it shouldn't stop you from doing things.
Right.
Because there's a lot you can do to prepare. There's a lot you can do to avoid. There's a lot you can do to just feel more confident when you're out on the trails in bear country. And so I'd say like I'm very confident in my bear skills.
Right.
And so I'm not necessarily nervous or scared of them any more than I naturally should be.
Right.
If that makes sense.
There's two directions I want to follow up on what you just said.
Oh, no. Okay.
The first is, yes, I definitely think that you can be a healthy fear of bears would be a fear that you just take the right precautions, but doesn't stop you from doing things.
Yeah.
So I think that's very good. That's a healthy way to look at it. We want to prepare people to encounter bears.
Yeah, but I don't want you to be like, I'm just not going to go.
Right. The second thing is I love how you said bear skills because
I do have bear skills.
it made me think of like Napoleon Dynamite's my bow staff skill, nunchuck skills, bow staff skills,
karate skills.
So good. Oh my gosh.
I have bear skills. My bear skills.
You've got great bear skills, Ash.
So let's jump in. But just know, this whole episode is to help you feel more confident if you're going to a national park with bears.
Yes.
So that's our whole point. That's what we're going for. We're not trying to scare you away. We're just trying to help you prepare and know what to expect.
Right.
So,
well, one thing I was looking at to kind of prepare for this is there are a lot of national parks with black bears.
Yeah.
There are only 4 in the lower 48 that have grizzlies. And that would be
Yellowstone, Glacier,
Grand Teton,
and North Cascades?
North Cascades,
okay.
Yep. So those 4 are the only ones that have grizzlies. And then you get up into Alaska and they call them brown bears.
And they're everywhere.
And it was kind of fun. There are a few up there that have polar bears too, which was really interesting. But
this will not include polar bear training. I've not ever seen a polar bear.
I think
out on the trail.
Your only hope when you see a polar bear is to outrun a baby seal.
No.
Outrun a baby seal.
If you only take one thing from this episode, it is do not run. Do not run. Do not run. Do not run.
Okay.
Even if you're trying to outrun a baby seal, do not run.
Okay, let me say this again. Back slowly away a baby seal.
Yes, do not run. That is, if you remember nothing else, do not run.
Right.
Okay, let's jump into these questions. We've got a bunch, and I just want to work through. So we're going to start first with general bear questions that you've asked, and then the second topic is going to be more about bear spray, which you had a bunch of questions about. So, question number 1, have we had any close encounters with a bear or wildlife in general?
Yes.
Absolutely. Like too many to name.
Even this last summer, when we were backpacking with our children in Grand Teton, we had to get off the trail because a bear was hiking on the trail towards us.
And we saw a mom bear with 2 cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw 2, maybe 3 moose, and just in a couple days span of hiking.
Right.
Backpacking. So we encounter bears a lot. I also was a park ranger in bear-heavy parks because I love mountains.
Right.
So I naturally kind of gravitate towards those areas. And so I was a park ranger in Grand Teton. I was a park ranger in Glacier Bay. I did work in Denali. So it's
lots of bears.
Lots of bears. In fact,
really big bears.
Yeah. I mean, the bears in Alaska are on a whole different scale. But like I would have to walk to work when I was at Glacier Bay from my house down to my office. And it was like this lakeshore trail that was like a half a mile. And I encountered bears on that trail all the time. And I was by myself because I was just walking to work. And they'd just be moseying on down the trail, and I just have to give them space and wait for them to walk. And, sometimes I was late for work because there was a bear on the trail and I couldn't go around him. So encountering bears is very normal for us because we favor the really mountainous national parks just naturally. Mm-hmm. Those are our favorites. And those parks have bears.
Yep.
So I would also say that I, as a park ranger, had a lot of training in bear skills.
I love it.
That's where my bear skills come from. I did have a lot of training in that too. And so that's why I say, if you're prepared and you know kind of what to expect, then it's just, there are things that you can do to keep yourself safer.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot of those through being a park ranger too.
Right.
So, okay.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt you were in danger of a bear attack?
Have you?
I don't think I've ever been in danger of a bear attack. There was once when you and I were hiking, once again in Grand Teton, where somebody came down the trail and was like, be careful, there's a mama and cubs on different sides of the trail. Mm-hmm. And so that one was a little frightening, but we never came in contact with them.
I've had actually on that same exact trail in Grand Teton probably 3 different times. This is the Surprise Lake trail. Mm-hmm. I've had people who will come down the trail while I'm going up and they're freaking out. There's a bear up there. I just turned around. I'm just not going any further.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I already hiked up the hill. I'm not turning around. I did all that hard work. I'm going to see that lake. Dang it. And so a lot of panic surrounding that. But yeah, in that case, that's when you get out your bear spray. You just hold it. You don't do anything with it. You just hold it.
Right. Exactly.
Just to kind of get it ready in case you do accidentally surprise that bear or you come up on it too fast. And then that's when I'll start saying, hey bear, and you start clapping, start making noise. Mm-hmm. You let them know they're coming, and they will usually, if it's a healthy bear, it will go away from you. It doesn't want to see you either.
One of the scariest things to most wildlife is the human voice.
Yeah.
Because it's so foreign to them.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that actually on the next question. But I will say I also have never felt like I was going to be attacked by a bear. There's been a couple of times where I've come around the bend on a trail and there's a bear right there and it's ugh, mm-hmm. Both of you are kind of startled with each other.
Right.
But again, that bear doesn't want to interact with you any more than you do with it, usually. And so in that case, you do these skills that will teach you. But that's been kind of the closest. Sometimes I have popped the safety off my bear spray a couple of times, just in instances like that, where it's that was way too close for comfort on accident.
Yes.
But I've never actually had to spray the bear spray at a bear.
I think the scariest experience I've had with a bear was when we were in Glacier and we had our children with us, and it was only 4 months or so after our youngest was born.
Yeah.
And so he was really little, fun-sized, snack-sized, is what I was thinking in my mind as we were passing this black bear. But the black bear was just on the side of the trail eating berries.
Yeah. But it was scarier because our son, we were waiting for the black bear to get further off the trail so we could pass, and he started crying.
Right.
And we're no, don't, let's not agitate the bear because your cry is agitating me.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or pique the bear's interest.
Yeah. And so that was the first time that we'd encountered one up close with a baby.
Yeah.
And we're shh, be quiet. Stop it.
This is not the time or the place. You can cry all night long like you usually do, but you be quiet right now.
Be quiet with this bear. So, okay, let's go on to the next question because this will kind of get into some of the nitty gritty, these next 2 questions. This next one, I read that bears are most dangerous when you surprise them. How do you avoid them? And so that goes along with what we were already saying. So actually the most dangerous bear is going to be an unhealthy bear, one that has corresponding humans with food.
Right.
Usually
they
is one that will start being a problem bear. And so those ones, if they're acting unnatural, those are actually the most dangerous. Those are the ones that are going to cause problems. If you just come up and surprise a bear, like I said, sometimes you go around the bend of a trail or something and you surprise the bear, then yes, like that can get them in their, their protective and defensive stance because they might feel like you're too close and they're telling you to back off. And so if you see a bear like start slapping the ground or, kind of growling or just getting really agitated,
standing up on its hind legs.
Yeah. Sometimes they're curious. Sometimes they're just telling you, hey, back off, dude. You're way too close to me. And so in that case, that's when you never turn your back to the bear. Don't turn your back to the bear, but you're going to walk backwards and give it space.
Right.
All while trying to make yourself look bigger. So a lot of times you'll wave your arms up and down in the air. I'm doing all these motions for John, by the way.
I'm getting a great educational experience
this
right now.
should be on video. But you're waving your arms in the air. You're talking because, as John said a little bit earlier, the human voice is actually the best deterrent. They typically won't stick around if they hear humans.
Some more than others, depending on your singing voice.
Some run real fast. So you're backing away relatively slowly, but backing away, giving them space, letting them, you're kind of showing your dominance as well, looking bigger, but putting space between you and that bear.
But are you yelling at the bear, or are you
You're
kind
not
of talking
yelling.
soothingly?
No, it's a forceful, strong voice.
Right.
But don't yell and don't run. Because you don't want to agitate it further. And if you run, that's why I say do not run, do not run, do not run, because that ignites like their predatory side.
Right.
Where now you look like prey.
Right.
So don't do that.
You trigger them into being aggressive.
Yeah, don't do that. But they are naturally scared of humans. To avoid surprising them in the first place, that's why when you go to the national parks and stuff, a lot of times they'll say, make sure you're hiking in groups of like 3 or more so that the conversation is going, so that your human voice is getting out there. Because as you're approaching an area where a bear already is, if they're hearing you, they're going to usually back off.
Right.
Just like there's going to be a bear in the trees that you don't even know is there because they heard your voice and they don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, exactly.
So
sometimes reserve the sweet, quiet solitude of nature until you get to your destination on the trail. Keep making noise while you're hiking.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to surprise a bear.
Yeah, you're not really going for solitude when you're in these bear-heavy parks.
Yeah.
You're wanting to make some noise. And on this note, I will say you will find people who get bear bells that they'll hook to like their backpack or their walking stick. And it's just a bell that will jingle as you move it.
That's the theory behind it.
Well, I mean, it does jingle while you walk.
That's true. In practice also.
The theory behind it is that the bell noise will scare the bear away.
Right.
Because it can hear you coming. But it's not nearly as effective as your voice.
Right.
And so I don't hike with bear bells. I don't enjoy it. Like that is honestly the worst way to ruin a hike to me is to have to listen to someone's bear bells. And they're not that effective.
Right.
It's better to just use your voice. That's why even if you're hiking by yourself, you're still saying, hey bear, you want them to hear your voice.
So what Ash is saying is it's equivalent to her to singing Christmas carols in the summertime.
Well, it's just a little cringe.
Which would actually be
I
better.
I don't want to hear.
It would be better at keeping the bears away to sing the Christmas carols.
There have been times when I was a park ranger in Grand Teton and on my days off, I would just go hiking all the time. And my friend and I would do that. And there was a lot of singing involved because to carry on a conversation for the 10 hours that you're out on the trail, I mean, that sometimes you're just tired of talking.
That's true.
And so it's like, let's just sing a song for a minute.
Some Smash Mouth? That's probably...
Hey now, you're an all-star.
Exactly.
So anyway.
Hey bear, you're an all-star. There you go. Nice.
John's really creative with his bear singing.
Ooh, quick tangent. This might be helpful to keep it entertaining. My family, my children, have been trained to love Bon Jovi and AC/DC. But we went through a stage where we would insert the word fish into like into any
Into any of the songs.
any of the songs.
It was pretty funny.
Like bad fish for bad medicine,
Yeah.
or
Your love is like bad fish. I know. Our little boys thought that was so funny.
it was so funny, but it did keep us making noise and kept us singing,
Yeah,
which was really fun.
it's true. It's true. Couple other things to avoid having a bear encounter is to be careful with your food storage.
Ooh,
So
big one.
if you're hiking, it's okay to carry snacks and stuff with you, but the thing is you don't ever want to let the bear get your food. And so you should not be separated from your food.
Right, because
So if you're carrying it on your back, like it stays on your back.
yeah,
If you stop to take a break, you don't put your backpack over by a tree and then go sit, 20 feet away. You keep that backpack like right with you.
right.
That's really important because the bears have an amazing sense of smell. And if they're in the area, they will smell your food.
Mm-hmm.
But usually it's enough that if it's with you, it will deter them. They're not going to come after it if you're holding it.
Right. And
So
because once again, like you mentioned earlier, an unhealthy bear is generally one that associates humans with food.
yeah, if they have gotten food, if a bear has gotten food from humans in the past and it starts associating humans with food, then that's when they're going to be more aggressive towards you to get your food.
Mhm.
They know you have it.
Which is another good reason not to feed like the squirrels and the chipmunks and whatever you see too, because sometimes you'll leave little crumbs around and the bears will come sniffing, they'll find it, and then they'll associate the trails with food, then they'll find
The
you.
area, the parking lot, the campground, all of that starts getting associated with food.
Yep.
For the bears. And, and it's funny because we are talking about bears, but that happens with squirrels too. It's
Right.
like you can tell. So those squirrels will start to get really dang aggressive
Oh man.
if they've been fed a bunch of human food. And so that happens with all wildlife, really. Any wildlife that you feed, they're going to start becoming unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that leads to, that's when they'll have to like euthanize bears. Or that's when, if it's a squirrel, like it won't survive the winter because it doesn't know how to get its own food anymore.
Right.
Stuff like that. So it's never a good idea to feed or to leave crumbs or whatever when you're in the national parks. You
Right.
keep your food with you. You keep your garbage with you. Don't leave anything behind. And that's what keeps the wildlife healthy.
Right. And we've talked about this a few times in past episodes where we mentioned how in Yellowstone and in some other parks, they did bear dumps
Yeah.
for a while where it was a big thing, where it was a tourist attraction where they would dump their garbage in certain places in the park so that people could come and then park their vehicles and observe the bears eating.
Watch the bears going through the garbage.
But then when we realized that was bad for them, the most animal attacks like ever in the national park system happened after those bears recognized that people are associated with food, and that's when you started having all of these animal attacks. And so it really does have downstream effects if you feed the animals in the national parks.
Yes, please don't do that. But also that keeps them healthy. So then you don't have to worry about them being scary
Right.
because they're not going to come after you if they're not associating you with food.
Right.
Then they just see a human that they don't want to have anything to do with.
Exactly.
So that's really important as well.
Okay, the next question is, what are you supposed to do when you see a bear? Is it different for brown versus black bears? First of all, like you mentioned, do not run.
Don't run.
Do not run. That is an absolutely no. But yes, the different kinds of bears should change how you react to a bear attack, not necessarily how you react when you see one on the trail.
Yeah, I mean, if you just see one, you do what we already talked about, right? Where you're giving it space, you're backing up, you don't run. Maybe get your bear spray out and just hold it in your hand just in case, but you're not planning on spraying it or anything.
Right.
And you're backing off, you're looking dominant, you're making yourself look bigger than you are.
Right.
And you're talking to it in a forceful way. If it escalates beyond that, then that's when it's more important to know what kind of bear you're dealing with and its identifying features, which truthfully, like I have so many bear skills, but like sometimes the two different kinds of bears still look very similar.
Well,
it's really hard to tell sometimes.
Because color is not determinant of the kind of bear.
It's not.
You can have black bears that are brown or kind of gold colors, and you can have grizzlies or brown bears that are very dark or very light.
Yeah.
And so it can be really tricky.
Well, and size too, because typically we think of grizzly bears as being much larger, and naturally they do get larger than black bears. But it depends on how old they are, right? It can be an adolescent grizzly that's smaller than adult black bear or whatever, you know?
True.
And so even size isn't going to be an indicator on what kind of bear you're seeing.
Which is why it's important that we mentioned earlier that there are only 4 national parks in the lower 48 that have grizzlies.
Right. That does make it easier.
Yeah. So if you're not in Grand Teton, Yellowstone, Glacier, or North Cascades, it's a black bear.
It's a black bear, yeah.
Yeah. And then when you do get to those really mountainy parks, then you can start to use some of these items to try to distinguish between what kind of bear it is.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. Usually what we're looking at is a grizzly bear will have a pretty thick shoulder hump. Sometimes black bears look like they kind of have a shoulder hump, and that's why it's like none of this is perfect for identifying.
But in general,
it has a big shoulder hump. The grizzlies do because they dig. They like to dig a lot.
Yeah.
And so they have just that big muscle on their shoulders that helps them dig. And so you'll want to look for that.
So grizzlies are more shoulder hump and black bears are more rump.
Yeah.
More butt.
They're a higher butt.
Higher butt than they do shoulders.
And then you're looking at the face if you can. This is usually the easiest way for me to tell because black bears have more of like it's a very straight nose profile between like their eyebrows and the tip of their nose. It's like a straight line.
Right.
Like a Roman nose, you know, like it's just very defining, like straight line.
The angle doesn't change between the nose and the forehead.
Yeah.
Basically.
And with the grizzly bear, they have more of a concave, like a dish shape between their forehead and their nose. So it bends like a bowl.
Kind of like the bridge that you have, right?
Yeah.
What that humans have. Go from where your eyebrows are down to your nose, you feel a little dip. That's what the grizzlies have more of.
It's a big one, though. It's like because their nose is so long.
Right. Exactly.
And then the other thing that you can look at is a grizzly bear typically has much shorter, rounder ears than the black bear. The black bear's ears they're more pointed and they stick up more. And so there's other ways to identify, like by their claws, which I don't know about you, but I don't want to be close enough to the bear to be able to tell what kind it is by its claws.
Right, exactly.
So I usually don't look at that. Yeah.
Would you mind just high five?
But
high
the
five.
grizzly, the grizzly has really long claws. Anyway, I just I'm like, if I'm that close, I'm too close. No, thank you.
If you see if you see bear tracks on the trail, then you can kind of get an idea of what to plan for maybe.
So the tracks with the black bear, it's more like a curve between the paws, and usually you won't see any claw marks further out. For the grizzlies, you can almost draw like a straight line below all of the paws, the 4 paws on top.
I mean, the fingers.
The fingers,
the finger pads. Yeah, so exactly. So the black...
I don't know what those are called. The black bear, their fingers are like really curved, like a nice little...
Kind of like a human hand, how the thumb is way lower than the other ones.
Well, you're mostly looking at the top 4.
Right.
And how they curve. Whereas grizzly bears, like you can draw a straight line between the pad, like the palm, and where the phalanges are. You can like draw a straight line and all of the fingers will be like above that line.
Right.
Usually they're not as curved. And then you can see claw marks. But I just, like I said, like not my favorite way to identify them because it's like, no, thanks. I don't want to be that close. But you're right. With tracks, you can tell between the two kinds.
Right.
If it's a brown or a grizzly bear, then you're going to want to leave your pack on and play dead, at least initially.
If you're attacked.
Yeah. If you just see one, don't play dead. Like back off. That's a good point to make, John. Thank you.
There's a bear up ahead. Everyone play dead.
Yeah, don't do that. Initially, you want to play dead. If it keeps fighting you, then you'll need to fight back. for a black bear, you're not going to play dead. You're going to fight back immediately. So
Right.
you should never have to use that, really.
Right.
I mean, unless you just have really, really terrible luck. But I've never even been close to having to do anything like that.
Right.
So, but it is good to know how to deal with that if it happens.
So then, generally speaking, unless you're in Yellowstone, Grand Teton, Glacier, or North Cascades, or Alaska, if you're anything besides that, you should plan on fighting back.
Yeah. If it makes contact.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is if it stalks you, then fight back because that's an unhealthy bear.
Right.
So if it's stalking you and then it makes contact, you fight back regardless of what kind of bear it is.
Because it's hunting you.
Yeah. If it attacks you while you're in your tent, you fight back because that's an unhealthy bear.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of things there. But like I said, like this is the part that people like get fixated on. Like, what do I do if one attacks me?
Mm-hmm.
Do I play dead or do I fight back? Or what kind of bear is this? And, you know, that's where a lot of the anxiety comes up. And it's like that, like, literally should not happen.
99% of the time, you should never have to worry about this.
Yeah. So it's good to know, but it's not something that you should ever have to use.
But if you do, aim for the face.
Yep.
That is this is not like boxing. There is no points for body shots because there's no way you're going to be able to do enough damage with the body. You just need to cause them enough sensory damage to their eyes or their nose so that they get shocked and stop attacking.
Now, here's the reason that I carry bear spray. It's to avoid even having to get to that point, right?
Exactly.
Because the bear spray is there to keep the bear from making contact when it's attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
So as it starts to look like it's going to attack you, you spray the bear spray, which is just a really strong pepper spray for bears.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're going for the face and the nose, the eyes and the nose. That's where it does the most damage.
That's where it's most sensitive.
Yeah, and that should stop any further contact, really, with the bear.
Right.
So, again, you're doing all these things. You're bringing the bear spray. You have all this knowledge. It really should never get to the point where the bear actually makes contact with you. That's very, very rare.
Right.
So, just keep that in mind. It does happen, and there are news stories that will come up sometimes where that does happen. But in 99% of the cases, it doesn't.
Correct.
So, okay. Next question. What do I do if a bear confronts us and I have my kids with me?
So this is like our experience in Glacier.
Yeah. So initially, if they're really small kids, then you're going to pick them up. You don't want them making any sudden movements or running.
Right.
If they're young and small enough for you to pick them up. And then you're just going to do the same thing that you do. You make yourself look bigger. You raise your arms. You say, hey, bear. You back off. And that should diffuse the situation. One other note, though, that I want to mention with this is that when we're hiking in parks with bears, I don't let my kids go far ahead of me.
Right.
Or rarely are they even hiking in front of me unless they're right in front of me.
Right.
Because I don't want them to get too far ahead of me and scare a bear, surprise a bear, come upon a bear. I don't want that to happen. So I am really careful about that with my kids.
Yeah, because
it's no, you are not running ahead. You are not getting out of my sight. You're right here with me.
Yep.
So that if we do come upon a bear, then we can take care of it together.
Exactly. Stay together as a family group.
Yeah.
And because if your kids do go ahead, A, they don't have the skills to deal with this, and B, they're going to run.
Yeah.
That's going to be what's going to happen for sure. That's just bad all around. And C, there's even a C. Yeah. And like I mentioned, our infant, when we went to Glacier, was fun-sized, basically, snack-sized for the bear. They might see them as something that, what a bears and wolves generally hunt. It's the young of the elk and the deer and the buffalo and everything like that. They go for the youngest and weakest.
Yeah.
So you're just presenting them.
Which is your 2-year-old. So.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, just keep them really close. Otherwise we just do the same thing that we always do to diffuse the situation. But
exactly.
Yes, I do not let my kids run ahead of me. That's my number one tip with that.
Yeah. All right. Next question is, can you hike with food or snacks? do I need a bear-proof container for the car? So, yes, you can have food and snacks. We always hike with food and snacks.
You need to hike with food and snacks.
It's a necessity. Yeah. You can't not, because you have to have something to eat once you get there.
You need energy.
It's tradition.
Yeah. No, it's energy.
Oh, it's energy. It's
and
true.
Tradition.
Ash was making fun of me the last couple days because I said, I feel like my sugar's low.
I know. He's like walking around all droopy. And he's like, I think I need more sugar.
I've been trying to lose weight. I haven't been eating as many carbs.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So my sugars have been low. But yes, you have to keep. We always hike with snacks. We never, ever don't hike with snacks.
It's like what I talked about before, though. If you're hiking with snacks, just make sure you're keeping them really close to you. Don't leave anything behind. Keep your backpack with you within arm's reach so you can grab it. All of those things. And you should be fine.
Yeah. For
backpacking, though, if you're staying overnight, then you do need a bear can.
Yeah.
In most national parks with bears, they'll just require it as part of your permit. So,
exactly. And sometimes you can rent them from like the park rangers, or they have some that you can use.
Yeah, usually if they require it, they will have some that you can just use while you're there.
Or
we purchased our own, actually, because we go so much now that it's just nice to have our own. But
that are clean. We can disinfect our own, which is really nice.
And we can pack them before we get to the park, which is also nice. But yeah, you don't need your own usually. Usually they'll provide them. But you do, if you're staying overnight, for sure you need a good way to pack that food up while you're sleeping.
Yeah. To the point about just putting it in your car, or maybe some people might think, what about if I just put it in my cooler? So the cooler probably no, because bears are tricky and they're smart.
We have a Yeti cooler, which is technically bear proof.
Right.
But we still don't ever leave it out. You don't leave it unattended.
Yeah.
We'll leave it in our vehicle with the doors closed and locked. But even if your cooler says that it's bear safe, you probably still should just get in the habit of putting it away.
Right.
But in most parks, it's okay for you to, even when you're camping and stuff, to leave your food in your car as long as it's locked. Bears can open car doors.
Yes, they can.
So they're
or break windows.
Tricky. Yeah. Well, if your window's already down a little bit, then yeah. Mm-hmm. If your window's up and your car is locked, then you should be okay.
Right.
But yeah, some parks, though, they don't want you to keep food in your vehicle overnight. Mm-hmm. And so they'll provide big bear boxes at the campsites where you'll put all your food and lock it all up. So that's a park by park basis, but just make sure your doors are locked if you leave it in the car mm-hmm. because they can actually open those doors.
A lot of the different national park campgrounds are pretty on the ball with a lot of this stuff in making sure that everybody in the campground is following the rules. And so you'll get notes on your car or on your...
if you leave food out and you leave, or if you leave anything out, a lot of times they'll confiscate it and you've got to go to the camp host and go get it.
Right, exactly.
So they are very serious about it. With good reason, like I said, that's like what makes unhealthy bears and scary bears.
Yeah, exactly.
is when they get our food.
Exactly.
So, and not just food, on another note, this is anything with a scent. So deodorant, toothpaste,
lotions,
hairspray, anything like that, you should not leave in your tent overnight or while you're gone or anything like that. That also needs to be kept in your car or in a bear box.
Exactly. Because a bear doesn't know that it's not food. A bear doesn't know that it's Jergens hand lotion.
No,
or
they
something
just
like
smell
that.
Something good.
I know, exactly. You have to think that these bears have noses that are orders of magnitude stronger and more powerful than our own.
Orders of magnitude?
Orders of magnitude. Yes, I'm talking about digits and decimals way out there. Because polar bears and like grizzly bears smell things from miles away.
It is pretty crazy. And bears are really curious. They're naturally pretty curious. So if they smell something, they're going to be like, I wonder what that is.
It's if you're a psych fan, it's like Gus's super sniffer times an order of magnitude. And so it's so powerful. It's like putting a superpower on like a 7-year-old kid is kind of what it's like. They're going to search all over the place and figure out what stuff is.
Yep. Anything with a scent needs to be put away. So, Okay, last question about bears, and then we'll get into bear spray specifically.
Okay.
So last question, I love this one. What are the top parks to see bears in the continental U.S.?
This is a good one.
This is a good one because it actually is pretty exciting to see a bear.
Yeah. It's majorly
From a
fun.
distance.
Yes, you should be excited about, you should be prepared enough that you're excited to see the bears.
Yeah.
That's what the goal of this whole episode is. We want you to have experiences that you can go back and tell all your friends and be like, dude, we just saw the coolest brown bear or grizzly bear or
you
black
get like
bear.
really cool pictures. I know like seeing bears in Yellowstone is a highlight for me every time.
Every time.
Yeah, it never gets old.
No.
So top parks to see bears, the ones that we mentioned, Grand Teton Glacier, Yellowstone, North Cascades that have both grizzlies and blacks.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of bears.
Yeah.
A lot of bears to go around in those parks. I would also add what a lot of people don't think about, especially if you're from the West, is Great Smoky Mountains. We have seen more bears in that national park than almost any other national park.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And they're black bears in that park. But like they just are around in some of the most busy parts of that park.
They're just wandering around. It's
so
really
Cades
fun.
Cove, we see bears in Cades Cove all the time, which is like the busiest part of Great Smokies.
Yeah. This last time that we were there, we drove the loop around Cades Cove in the evening for specifically wildlife sightings.
Absolutely do that if you can. It was incredible.
Yeah.
We saw
so
how many bears? Like 5 or 6, I think.
You almost get to the point where you stop slowing down because you've seen enough. You're good.
And people like bring in their pickup truck with camp chairs in the back and they just sit in the back and they just drive around the loop and look for bears. It's really cool.
It's so fun.
We didn't do that. We weren't prepared for that.
No, we were in a rental car too.
I know.
Next time, if we ever are down there again with our truck and trailer, you better believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I want to put a, what do they call those beanbag chairs?
Oh,
I want to put a love sack in the back of my truck and just like lay there.
Go see the bears and the fireflies.
Yeah. I'll let you drive.
Yeah. No way. I want to see the bears.
I was the one that packed the love sack.
Rocky Mountain has bears.
Only black bears, though.
Yeah, Yosemite and Sequoia have bears. Pretty much anywhere in the Rocky Mountains or the Sierras or Appalachians.
That being said, the forests in Olympic, we've never seen anything there for black bears because they're so thick. You almost can't see anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Lassen has
Lassen has bears.
There's a lot of places you can see bears.
There is. Some more than others, for sure. But
yes, you should be excited to see these bears. And now we'll talk about our last tool, which should be your major...
It's your last resort.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is bear spray, which a lot of people have questions about because it's not something that you just like know how to use. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really don't have an opportunity to practice using it. It's something that you buy. It's like insurance. You hope you never have to use it.
Nobody ever goes to like the gun range with bear spray to practice.
No.
That would be pretty funny to see, though.
So, but I am a big supporter of bear spray. I think it not only brings me peace of mind, but it is actually proven to be more effective than using a gun on a bear. In the national parks, it's illegal to discharge a firearm. And so that's really not an option.
Right.
And so bear spray it's something that you can carry and you won't have problems with it. It's something that you don't really have to have experience with, but you should know some things about it before you try to use it.
Plus, isn't it nice that it's more effective than a gun? So you don't have to worry about bringing 12 gauge or rifle or something?
It is. They always talked about, like, when I was in Alaska, because people really like guns in Alaska, right?
Yep.
And there are some areas, because a lot of the national parks up there are national park and preserve, and the preserves have less strict rules than the national parks. Sometimes you do get people up there that were always like, oh, I got to have my gun, no bear spray, like the gun. And it's like, I mean, it can be effective, but not, you can't use them in national parks.
Right.
I mean, that's really the main thing. But also, when those bears are so big, sometimes, you only get one shot and it doesn't do much.
But also,
So
if you miss, then it's
Yeah.
a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And the bear spray,
it's like a big mist in the area.
Right. It's
so it's if
much
the bear,
harder to miss.
Yeah, if the bear is close enough, then it should hit where it needs to.
And it's a continuous spray, so it's like the cumulative effect of all of the spray instead of just like one shot with your pistol or something like that. And so the bear spray is much more effective for multiple reasons, and it's more user-friendly for the person who's experiencing the bear charging at them.
Yeah. Yeah, but I always have people who are like, no, bear spray, doesn't work. I just got to bring my gun. And it's like, well, but you can't discharge your gun in a national park. So anyway, there's all sorts of stuff around that, but just know that bear spray is very effective. It works really well, and it should be plenty for what you need it for.
Right.
So this first question about bear spray is, can you tell us how to use bear spray and when to use it? So again, bear spray is just like a really strong pepper spray for these bigger animals.
With a major, pressure inside the bottle to shoot the pepper spray really far.
Yeah. You'll also want to note that bear spray is not a deterrent. And so it's not like bug spray. You don't spray it to keep things away.
Right.
Which, no,
I shouldn't laugh.
No, okay, so when I was in Glacier Bay, somebody did that. They sprayed their tent and the perimeter of their tent.
Oh my gosh.
With bear spray, thinking that it would keep the bears away. But it actually has the opposite effect because it smells.
Well, right. It's like I said earlier.
Pepper, yeah.
You gave us a smelling superpower to a 7-year-old, and suddenly there's this whole tent that smells like pepper.
Yeah.
What's that?
So the bear's like, what is this? And if if you've already sprayed it, then it doesn't keep the bear away. So that's not how it works. It's meant to be a last defense if a bear attacks you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're only going to want to use it if the bear is charging you.
Right.
That's really the only time you're going to use it is if things have escalated enough, you backing off, you giving it space, you acting dominant did not de-escalate the situation, and that bear is charging at you.
Right.
And on the bear spray container, a lot of times it says it will shoot 30 to 40 feet. In my experience, it usually only shoots about half that.
And depending on the wind.
Yeah. And so that bear's got to be pretty darn close. You've got to see its beady eyes looking into yours before you shoot it.
So see the whites of its eyes.
Yeah.
This is like the Revolutionary War.
You do, though. The bear needs to be quite close to you, and then there's a safety on the can, and you pop that safety off, hopefully before the bear gets too close. You pop the safety off. But as the bear gets closer to you, then you hold it in front of you and you spray. And a lot of times you'll spray in kind of spurts, not just one long continuous spray. It'll kind of be a pss, 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 so that it has a chance to get on the bear.
Right, exactly. But kind of how we've talked about the nature of these bears, it isn't like they're going to see you and automatically think prey. So you're often going to have the opportunity to get your bear spray out and get it ready while you're doing some of these other things to try to back away, to diffuse the situation. Just kind of get your bear spray out while you're doing it, because a healthy bear isn't going to be one that's just like, yes, breakfast finally showed up and I got to go get it right now.
Right. Yeah. And to that point, when you're hiking with bear spray, make sure it's somewhere that you can access easily. Don't put it down in the bottom of your backpack or anything. It should be. A lot of them come with holsters that you can put around your backpack strap or around your waist. Mm-hmm. Or I sometimes put it in the water bottle holder pocket on my backpack, but just something that I can hurry and grab. So, but that's how you use it. You're just spraying at the face if it's charging at you. Right. Within 10 to 15 feet. Which leads to the next question, which is when and at what distance should you deploy the bear spray? So when is if the bear doesn't back off and it starts to charge. You don't put your back to the bear. You're trying to make distance between it. But if it charges, then you spray its face. 10 to 15 feet to deploy. You're aiming for the eyes and nose. You're aiming for the eyes and nose, but again, it's very uncommon that you'll have to use it.
Right.
We've done so much hiking in places with bears, and I've never had to use it.
And had so many experiences walking up on a bear kind of surprising us.
Yeah.
We've had tons of experiences, so this really should be seen as like worst case scenario, probably 99% chance won't ever happen.
Yes. So next question, have you ever used bear spray on a bear? No, but because of my bear skills, I have sprayed bear spray before.
Right.
As part of my national park ranger training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say, like, it doesn't go as far as you think it will. It does spray in a general mist. And so you want to wait for the bear to be close enough.
Right.
I mean, that's really what I took away from like spraying these cans of bear spray. It was like, oh, like that bear's got to be pretty dang close.
Right. Well, I think also, I don't think we realize how quickly, 10 to 40 feet goes.
Right.
And a lot of times,
especially if you're in panic mode, it's like you're not really thinking clearly.
Right. Well, but you also kind of think of it like you're on a football field. 10 yards is 30 feet. That's not very far.
Yeah.
And so it's, you kind of got to wait, choose your moment, and then go for it.
And I do have a friend who did have to use bear spray, who worked up in Alaska with me, and he was by a river that was really heavy. It was heavy salmon season, and he was doing some work in the river. He's a scientist. And anyway, there was a bear that did charge him while he was at the river with all the salmon. The bear felt like he was encroaching on his space, and he was charged, and he got his bear spray and he sprayed it, and the bear backed off.
Right.
So it does work.
Yeah, it does.
And I do have a friend who has like personal experience with that, which is why and he was like so panicky, afterwards. I was like, oh my gosh, and the bears up there, these big brown bears. I mean, they're just massive bears.
Yeah.
But it worked, and he sprayed the bear and it went off, and, it was very uncomfortable. That bear spray is very strong. And so anyway, it worked, which is why I carry it.
Yes.
I'm like, I haven't had to use it, but I know someone who has, and it worked. And so that's really important to me.
Yep. Which is great for the next question. Does everybody in my group need some, or just a couple of us? And you're probably good with just one of you.
You really only need one can per group, maybe two if it's a larger group.
Ash and I each carry a can.
But make sure the person who's carrying it knows what they're doing.
Right.
So, and just keep it easily accessible, and then you're good. Okay, so a couple more questions just about bear spray in general. Where do you recommend getting bear spray if you're flying? So this is something to note, that you can't take bear spray on a plane.
That's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and so, yeah. So what you're going to want to look for the specific national parks and see if they have any outfitters nearby that rent it. A lot of places do. Grand Teton and Yellowstone have a really cool bear spray rental program that's super easy to use. And it's like there's drop-off locations and pickup locations all over that area for those.
Glacier has the sharing shack.
Yep, which is like an unofficial people leave stuff behind type of thing. So you can find that on Facebook. But then local outfitters, you can either buy it or rent it from those. So if you're flying, though, don't get it before you come. You'll need to get it when you get there.
Right. This is an interesting question because we mentioned California is a little bit different. Is it illegal in California to use bear spray?
So technically it's legal, but they are pretty strict on it. But in the national parks, certain national parks, which are Yosemite and Sequoia and Kings Canyon, you cannot have bear spray in those parks.
Which is so interesting because all of the other national parks, every other national park you can.
Yeah, so California is a little bit more strict, and then Yosemite and Sequoia Kings take it even further, where you cannot have bear spray in those parks. You can't bring it in, you can't hike with it, nothing. Like it's against the law in those parks. Because they categorize it as a weapon. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So then the other part of the question that this person asked, like, well, then what do I do to keep myself safe? And you use all those other principles we already talked about. Right. You de-escalate the situation. Make a lot of noise while you're hiking. And we've encountered
black bears in Yosemite and in Sequoia and Kings
Yeah,
Canyon.
I mean, they're definitely there. They have a different way of managing the bears in those parks.
Yeah.
The park rangers do things differently there. And we go along with it. Do I love not hiking with bear spray? No. I do not enjoy that.
Exactly.
I am not particularly happy about that, but you can't have bear spray in those parks.
But if you follow all of the other things that we've talked about, then you'll be able to de-escalate and diffuse almost all of these situations that you'll have and you'll experience. And then it will just be a fun experience every time you see a bear. Plus, Yosemite especially, it can be a pretty busy national park. And so they see people a lot. And so they kind of just stay away from you.
Many bears in Yosemite. We've seen way more in Sequoia Kings than we have in Yosemite.
They stay away from you.
Yeah, but just make noise and, exert your dominance.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, just a couple more small questions here about bear spray. Is it common to be able to get bear spray at hotels that others have left behind? So that totally just depends on the hotel and if they're willing to take it or not. So you'll just need to call individual hotels. Going along with that, will a ranger take your bear spray when you're done with it? In Grand Teton, we didn't. That's not something that we did. In Glacier Bay, though, we did.
Mm-hmm. So it's very park specific.
It is. In Glacier Bay, we had a little hiker's shed, basically, that people could leave stuff behind that they couldn't take on the airplane because you basically had to take an airplane to get to that park.
Right.
And then people could come and they could take whatever was left. So that's just going to depend on the park. I would say most of the time, though, don't count on it.
The next question is, does it expire or go bad? And yes, there is an expiration date on the can, mainly because it's the pressure in the can that expires. Yeah,
it's not necessarily the spray itself, but it's the pressure that gets the spray out there to the bear.
Which is what you really want.
Yeah.
You don't want to have an experience where you pull the trigger and it's like a shaving cream foam that just kind of comes out onto your hand and you're just kind of trying to splash it at the bear.
That's not going to work. Yeah. So do watch that expiration date. Sometimes we let ours go a little bit past it. Who knows? We've never had to use it. But
exactly. Maybe I will just have to. You come here, bear. I'll get a pool of it in my hand, and rub it in his face
and
as
then
he
your
bites.
Hand is burning.
As it bites my hand off.
Okay, and then last question: how do I safely dispose of unused or expired bear spray? Because it is a pressurized can of pepper spray, basically. Sometimes your local fire department might take it. Landfills sometimes, depends on their programs, will take it.
They'll probably have a specific hazmat location to put stuff like this.
Yeah, you can try to spray it off yourself if you want to go somewhere really secluded.
You can have a good practice. I don't know. It's like we talked about.
Yeah, you got to be so careful if you do that. I would not.
Officially, we're telling you not to do that.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Unofficially, we're telling you that if you do, make sure you're by yourself. Check the wind so that it doesn't come back into your face. And make sure, just be so careful.
Right. But like we said, officially, don't do it.
Officially, don't do it. Yeah. And some parks do have bear spray recycling, like Yellowstone. So you can just drop off your bear spray and they will take care of it.
Right.
So some parks do have that, not very many.
But that's all of our questions. And
so many questions, right? Like, I know that it's a big anxiety point for a lot of people. So hopefully this episode was helpful. It was kind of more like the nitty gritty, like really deep into the bear skills.
Yes. We want you to have bear skills too.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
so
we
cool.
do. So for your task for today, though, we would love to hear your bear stories. Brownie points if you want to attach a picture that you've taken of a bear while you've been in the national parks.
Love it.
That would be super fun. Let's celebrate these beautiful animals, how cool it is to see them while you're out, experience that it gives you. Like, it's just like elevates your whole experience.
Exactly.
When you see really cool animals in the national parks.
Right. And that's why we're doing this whole episode, because we just want there to be as little anxiety about seeing bears as possible. You are now prepared. Yes. You've been deputized into the bear skills. You are now white belts in bear skills? Yellow belts in bear skills. After you get your first...
Let's go a little higher.
Yeah. You get your first few encounters under your belt. Ooh, we're sticking with
nice.
that.
Yeah.
That metaphor. And then you'll become a black belt in bear skills. And that's what we're doing here. We're getting you started on your journey.
Yes. So go over to the Dirt in My Shoes Facebook or Instagram page. Let's talk about bears.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cool experiences we've had with bears. Show us some pictures. Let us know about your experiences with bears.
Yes.
And if you have any additional questions, leave them there as well. And we'll try to pop in and answer some of those.
Right.
So
exactly.
we want to make sure you feel good about going to these national parks. Because honestly, like the mountain national parks, that's where it's at for me.
They're so great.
They're so great. And
so much
it's
wildlife.
Just like, you know what? I've just had to learn to be okay with bears.
Yes.
Because the trails and the views are absolutely worth that, getting that black belt in bear skills. So
oh my gosh, I want one so bad now. I want a real black belt in
you
bear
have to
skills.
stop waking up with every sound when you're camping. You can't get your black belt until you stop waking me up while we tent camp.
I feel like, isn't that part of being a black belt where I wake up and I'm just like, wah! You know?
Not when your wife is really tired.
All right.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for humoring us on this. I hope it was helpful. If it was helpful, go leave us a 5-star review. We'd love to hear from you. We read through all of those reviews. We're so grateful for you. And pack up your bear spray and go get some dirt in your shoes.